Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very senior professional and an executive coach, Mr. Hari Prakash. Hari, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
Thank you. Hari is a management consultant and an executive coach. He is the former CEO of GP Petroleum Limited in India, and he's a certified independent director. So, Hari, today we'll talk about your avatar as an executive coach. Tell me, what made you become a coach after the corporate sector?
I would say it evolved over time. I generally like to help people and work in teams. It's been with me for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And more recently, I joined Rotary for community service. And I must say, it was an eye-opener when I realized that I could impact the lives of people, even in a small way. I also got designated as a mentor when I was working in a global organization while I was in China and in Singapore as a mentor and trying to help aspiring young executives. During this time, I was also exposed to professional coaching. And I must say that the Coaching Foundation of India, where I had my postgraduate degree as well for coaching, played a huge role in shaping what coaching can look like. Now I enjoy coaching and making a positive impact to people's lives.
Wonderful. So, when I was a young manager in the early 80s, coaching and mentoring was done either by a family elder or by a senior colleague who took a liking for you.
That's right.
What has made coaching so important in our lives that people are now willing to pay for it?
Well, that's a pretty good question in the sense that, particularly in the context in India, we still have a lot of coach and mentor within the family, and we still rely on it, rightfully so. But over a period of time, what has happened? The complexities of the world have developed so much. People are working in very different and difficult situations. And coaching basically is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. That's essential of coaching. Not everybody has the capability to help somebody work at a professional level to unlock their potential. Coaching is basically helping them rather than teaching them. So that's where you find the difference of coaching. In coaching, you focus on the strengths and you leave alone the mistakes and failures or the self-limiting beliefs. I'm often reminded of the quote by Sir John Whitmore, where he said, to get the best out of people, we first need to believe the best is already there in it. I think this is where our family members, when they took the role of coach or a mentor, always believe that we are the best. To get that from an external person, it may not happen on its own. So that's how the whole evolution of a coach and a professional coach came in, where people are trained and people also come in with the mindset that I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I can possibly help you explore your own potential. And we could possibly mutually work out as how we take it forward.
Okay.
So let me come to the second part of your question. Was why is it so relevant in the world now? See, people are evolving and adapting to various situations. The world has become a little bit more complex than before, or at least we perceive that way. And not everybody has the capability to match that complexities. Different folks need different strokes. I'm reminded of this book, Fair Isn't Always Equal by Rick Wormeli. If you haven't read that, please do take time to read.
Sure.
It's essentially assessing and grading in differentiated classrooms. But what has a classroom got to do here? When I read that, it gives a lot of insights on why people need help to unlock their own potential without being judgmental. In a classroom, the children are of different grades and different capabilities, but the exam is same. It isn't fair to judge everybody at the same level. So the book explains, and in some international schools, they try to use that as a form of helping children. And I feel even at a professional level, people need that sort of a differentiator help and support. So that's where I feel there are many types of coaching, like life coaching, business coaching, executive coaching, and so on. That's how the whole evaluation came for the world.
Wonderful. And, this is probably a good time to ask you, what is the difference between coaching and mentoring?
This is one of the most often asked question. See, mentoring is based on, it's a need-based and often very informal. The mentoring takes the focus on reflections and guidance. You possibly pass on wisdom and sometimes even solutions. It also focuses on a role model. I mean, you could be a role model, or you could be inspirational, and you could be a mentor to somebody. Whereas in coaching, it's a process which occurs on a professional level. It occurs in the context of work where we are focusing on effective performance. So coaching is more structured, I would say. It's measurable, and the emphasis is on personal changes through being more self-aware and self-reflections. So here, the coach does not give the solution on a platter. Solutions are more explored and mutually discovered. So this is where I find the difference. And thanks to CFI for helping me to get this description and ingrained in my mind. But your question has got a big relevance that very often you will find a little bit of an overlap or a merging of coaching and mentoring over a period of time. So it can happen, but you have to be very clear as to what is the objective with which you are engaging a professional coaching side.
Very interesting. So my next question to you is that in today's world, which is highly competitive, very stressful, a lot of challenges, who should look for a coach?
The answer is very simple. I mean, I'm actually borrowing the words of Bill Gates. He said, everyone needs a coach. It does not matter whether you're a sports person or an executive or a family man. We all need feedback, don't we? And that's how we improve. So the simple answer to your question is everybody needs a coach. The question always just comes in mind is this the right time? Or am I committed to getting into a coaching assignment? Is always the question. But the short answer is everybody needs a coach.
Okay. And how long should the association be?
Well, the typical coaching assignment generally is about 8 to 9 months. But in some cases, I've seen companies or executives seek to be associated for a little bit more time. And I would say it's more like a support mechanism to ensure that the change is sustainable.
Okay.
So that's how, and later on, people do want to engage in certain other aspects or graduate to a mentoring sort of a role. But typically, I would say 8 to 9 months is good enough.
Okay. And, we often talk about, as a coach, deciding who to take as a coachee.
Okay.
My question to you is, how does the coachee evaluate that I have a good coach?
That's straight bang on to the subject of a coach. Considering whether you are a good or not so good coach is very judgmental, and I wouldn't really want to describe that part of it. But what I would say is, how do we really say whether a coaching is effective or not? Now, the fundamental trigger is the first few meetings between a coachee and a coach. And during that time, the coachee decides whether I can trust in this person as a coach. And am I committed to take on to the actions what we will mutually agree. And once this equation is set up in the first couple of meetings, most of the coaching assignments are taken to a positive trajectory. The result of it, however, people still want to see whether are you going with a good coach or what is it. People do ask that question. We can see the positive impact through the eyes of the coachee.
Okay.
Do they feel empowered? Do they see a positive difference in themselves after engaging in a coaching session? Are they more aware of their strengths? Sometimes what happens, you have certain strengths, but you don't use them. I mean, there are psychometric analysis like 24 via or even through 360, you get some feedback. And people realize they have the strength, but they hardly use it. Now, if you can trigger them to use those strengths, then you can also get a perception whether the coachee is feeling that within himself or herself, they are able to use that. And most important is getting out of the self-limiting beliefs. Well, I want to emphasize here, this becomes the milestone of a successful coaching engagement. If the coach is able to help the coachee understand what are his or her self-limiting beliefs and help him get over it through the strengths, that would be a factor which would help both ways.
Fascinating.
So some of these factors are to perceive whether a coaching engagement has been effective or not.
Okay. And, based on all your experience, is there a difference in coaching, say, the CEO of a company and someone in middle management?
Yes, there is a difference, of course, and it depends also on the culture of the various countries, because the hierarchy is very different in India or Australia or in Japan, Thailand, for example. And I had the opportunity to work in many of these countries when I was the head of Asia Pacific with a global organization called BP Castrol. I had the opportunity to lead business in China, Japan, Korea, and also in Southeast Asia. So I really understood and really was happy to understand many of these cultures and how we manage them. So the difference, culture is one part of it, of the hierarchy, but more importantly, a senior or a CEO or a leader, when you engage in a coaching, the biggest difference is the mindset between a senior and the not so senior people, where there is an aspiration for change. A senior leader or a CEO could believe that he has already achieved a lot, and rightfully so. They have already achieved, they come up to where they are, seen this, done that, and might think, what more is there for me to learn through a coaching session?
Correct.
The reality strikes when you do a little bit of a psychometric exercises, also a 360 feedback, and then are they ready to see the feedback wherein, like the Johari window, you know what you know, but what others perceive about you, and you really do not know that. That's the time when they realize there is another perspective of this person, of the senior CEO. And if he's really interested in transforming himself, he would definitely want to do a coaching to improve himself. Compared to that, the emerging leaders, I would say, are aspirational, willing to change, and they are looking forward to the next level, and they feel this could help them go to the next mile. So this is a difference I've seen. There's nothing good or wrong, bad, but I think it's a mindset and possibly the willingness to look further.
Fantastic. So Hari, now let's move to the next segment of our conversation, which are where, you in your avatar as an independent director. In today's world, where independent directors have the same fiduciary responsibility as that of an executive director, what do you look for before accepting a board position?
Good. So today, as you know, in Indian context or even global context, India, at least the Minister of Corporate Affairs and the SEBI have been mandating a lot of regulations, and it keeps changing. The fundamental objective is to bring in transparency and corporate governance. Now, when I'm looking at a board position, what do I look at? Company performance, corporate governance, and what is it you can bring onto the table? Let's not forget that. What is it you will add value to the whole? While being an independent director, you are not expected to do a day-to-day operational work in that company. But your primary role becomes the pillar of corporate governance. So the transparency and how well you are able to ask the right questions is more important in a board. And these are things I would look for before looking at a board position.
So there have been, several instances of very high profile companies making a lot of money, where there have been challenges of various kinds, and then the independent directors have run into problems. So my question is, how do you determine before joining a board what is the level of transparency and what is the degree of corporate governance?
So the first thing is, let us all agree that there is a high level of accountability.
Correct.
When you accept a role of independent director.
Hmm.
Now, over a period of time, the accountability also comes with a certain responsibility of what you have to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
But very often what has happened in the past is people do not have the wherewithal or the authority to question, or sometimes the minority stakeholders are left behind in an institution where the majority stakeholders can do whatever they want, and the board becomes a rubber stamp. Now, with the current changes that's happening, there is a lot more of authority and transparency coming in.
Okay.
So as an independent director, I would, if I were to join a company, I would first look at the history of corporate governance. I would look at the existing structure, board structure. And I would look at the performance of the company. Now, based on this, I would take a decision whether to accept an invitation or approach them that I'm willing to be part of this board.
Okay.
Once you're signed up, this is where the whole important issue comes. Once you're signed up, you have the responsibility as an independent director to ask the right questions at the right time so that corporate governance is ensured. If you do not ask the question and keep quiet, that also is a wrong. You cannot keep quiet when you see something wrong is happening. At least you need to raise the question, whether it gets impacted or not. You are expected to raise it at the right time. I think this is where, if you look at most of the areas where they are advising independent directors, are to be aware of what's happening and also ask the right questions the right time for the benefit of the minority shareholders as well.
Okay, very interesting. So, Hari, I'm now going to move to the last segment of our conversation. All our viewers and listeners love to get to know our guest a little better. I have time for 2 or 3 questions. My first question to you is, as a senior corporate leader, as a coach, as an independent director, what are some of the core values you believe in?
It's very simple. Over a period of time, as an executive and as a senior management, and when I'm on the board of a listed entity, it has been integrity and commitment. I mean, these are 2 things where we just cannot compromise, and which I believe as the core values. And later, the other addendum comes in where you believe in a safety culture, which is more of a responsibility for the people, which is very important to take care of. And I'm really happy to see that in India, the culture of safety awareness is building up rapidly, and people are also taking up. But I learned it the hard way, and I got exposed to many of the situations which helped me learn. And I believe that's the right way to go to have more safety awareness, in addition to the ethics, integrity, and commitment.
Okay. And my next question is that, after a successful career and doing so many different things, from where you stand today, what does success mean to Hari?
For me, success has always meant what is the legacy I leave behind. I'm quite happy to say that whichever organization I worked and I left, I held the bridges firm. Now the bridges are burnt. So, and also there is always a feeling of some people in each organization who feel I made a difference to them in a very positive way. So a legacy left behind and also being regarded as a good human being is what I feel success means to me.
Okay.
And I would strive for that.
Okay, wonderful. And a follow-up question to success is, who or what inspires you?
Okay. So my parents have been the source of inspiration over a very long period of time. They have been my best motivators, full of positivity, commitment, and right from early age on, I think that's been a lasting impact on me. Those values have shaped my outlook. Okay. The other person who inspired me is Swami Vivekananda. And I often recollect his words which said, you are the creator of your own destiny. So every time I find myself in a good position, I reflect on that. When I'm finding myself in a challenging situation, I tell that perhaps that's what I was working forward to. And then I got into that position. And if I need to change my destiny, it's me who has to work and find a way for it.
Very interesting. And my last question to you, and this is for all the people who will listen to our conversation. And as I mentioned, a very large number of them are very young. What would your advice be to a young individual starting off on her or his career in the corporate world?
Okay, good. So before I come to the answer directly, I must say that the biggest learning which leads you to answer such a question would be, are you willing to make mistakes? Are you willing to learn from your mistakes? And I must say that I had a fair share of mistakes in my life,
right.
And but nothing very catastrophic. But each one of them helped me to learn. My resolve became stronger, and I could learn from that. So if I were to look at the future for the young aspiring individuals, I'm super excited to see the opportunities that are opening up for the young generation today. I mean, you call them Gen Z or the millennials. Of course, millennials are now, you classify them in the age group of 35 to 40, and the Gen Z, they come sometime at the age of 18 to 20. And these are the very young CEOs who want to be. I would tell them, I would remind them to read the book by Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist. Very often a word comes there. If you have a dream and tell the world, the whole universe will conspire to make it happen.
Wow.
Now, it's a very powerful word,
sure.
which says that, in a nutshell, be bold to tell your dream and believe in yourself. I really wish them all the best wishes and luck for them to succeed.
Wonderful. Hari, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for talking to me so much about coaching and your role as an independent director, or for that matter, your advice to independent directors and to young people. Thank you again and good luck.
Thank you. Pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.